Temperature in the mid-20s. Tomorrow, back to the upper 30s. Northwest wind, though, increasing in the afternoon, 20 to 35. Temperatures plummeting on Saturday.
Good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along. We had the president giving his farewell address last night, and we'll talk about that in detail this morning. So,
News Talk 1320 107.9. The Doctor of Discernment.
Caught with my britches down.
The Greg Belfrage Show.
I've been listening to you for years, Greg. Thanks for all you do and keeping us informed.
One of those mornings where I've been running all over the place trying to get everything ready.
Of common sense, no prescription required.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
This is the Greg Belfrage Show.
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show this Thursday, January 16th. And it truly is another day in wacko world. Let's start with what's going on in the Middle East. The president taking credit last night. The president had his farewell address. And we'll get into that in more detail coming up shortly. So he was taking credit for the Israel-Hamas deal. Well, now, as of this morning, according to Fox News, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today accused Hamas of backing out of the ceasefire deal. And so they said, Netanyahu said his cabinet will not meet to approve the Gaza ceasefire deal until Hamas backs down from what it called a last-minute crisis. So we'll keep a close eye on this with Fox News Radio over the course of the morning. So again, keep in mind that Israel is about 6 hours ahead of the United States. So as our day is just getting underway, theirs is already underway. And so Netanyahu is saying that, Hamas backing out of the ceasefire deal, which would be absolutely stupid, I think, especially with Donald Trump coming in. Because, in fact, there's a story at justthenews.com this morning regarding the president, President Biden giving his farewell address to the nation yesterday. And he was pressed by the media over who should get credit for the deal. And Biden said, "Is that a joke?" And just kept right on going. So he never responded other than to say, "Is that a joke? Who deserves the credit?" But here is the thing, and justthenews.com has the story. It's that Qatar's Minister of State said the deal that was unveiled yesterday was possible because Donald Trump had coordinated with Joe Biden's team and made a powerful warning to both sides to reach a deal before Donald Trump was inaugurated. And then also Trump dispatched his own envoy to the region. This is Steve Witkoff, to help seal the deal. And they're saying Israel was pretty wary. So, again, this is coming from Qatar's Minister of State. President-elect Trump has been clear in his public statements that he wants to see an end to the war as soon as possible. These messages supported our efforts as we continued mediating between the parties to try to finalize an agreement. Steve Witkoff, in particular, has been actively engaged in the discussions to get a deal over the line. He has been in Doha working closely with our team to close the gap, so on, so on. There truly is no better way for an incoming administration to handle this situation. So here is the the Minister of State of Qatar saying it was Donald Trump's envoy that helped get this thing over the finish line. And of course, here's President Joe Biden on television last night taking credit for all of that. Trump said on True Social, Trump said this epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. I am thrilled American and Israeli hostages will be returning home to be reunited with their families and loved ones. With this deal in place, my national security team, through the efforts of Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, said they'll continue to work closely with Israel and our allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. We will continue promoting peace through strength throughout the region. And as we build on the momentum of this ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords, this is only the beginning of great things to come for America and indeed the world. That's what Donald Trump is saying on True Social. So the president addressed the nation last night, his farewell address. Forgive me, I want to keep these stories bundled so that I don't lose them later. President Biden said, "My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from the Oval Office." He said, "Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation," he said, by my administration, a ceasefire and hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas. And he said the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. And then he went on to give credit to his team, largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's not what we just heard from Qatar. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans. So he also he touched on a number of things in his farewell speech. He said there's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra wealthy people. And he said, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. There's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra wealthy people. The dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked, he said. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence. Who might he be talking about? I mean, who might it be that he's talking about? Extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights, freedom, and a fair shot at everyone to get ahead. Oh, this is just, I mean, seriously. I listen to him and it's just, I just feel like I need a shower. He talked about the American dream, the most powerful idea that all of us are created equal. The very idea of America was so big, we felt the entire world needed to see the Statue of Liberty, a gift from France after our Civil War. Like the very idea of America was built not only by one person, but by many people from every background and from around the world. Like America, the Statue of Liberty is not standing still. Her foot literally steps forward atop a broken chain of human bondage. She's on the march. She literally moves. And he just went, some of this is really. And of course, he had David Axelrod, Democrats. Oh, it's just such a remarkable, it's just such an incredible speech. So during this, he warned about the oligarchy. He talked about the tech industrial complex in his farewell speech. The again, as I mentioned, a portion of this, we see the consequences all across America of this extreme wealth, he said. And we've seen it before. More than a century ago, the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy. They just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had. Workers want rights to earn their fair share. Oh, yeah, he really is the working Americans president, isn't he? You know, is that why the economy has gotten so sour? Is that why so many working Americans are having a harder time making ends meet? He's just really a champion. His view of himself is really, I will not miss that. There are a lot of things about this administration I will not miss, but his view of himself and these grandiose moments that he has is just absolutely incredible. He went on to say Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation. There's that word again, misinformation, disinformation. They're the misinformation and disinformation specialists. The Biden administration has been. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact checking. Which is not entirely true. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power. Whose abuse of power? I think is the question certainly comes to my mind. So he would love to see change in Washington, called for an end of the dark money coming in. Again, so much of this is just absolutely hypocritical that you just can't get through it. And so he touched on a lot of things. The oligarchy, the tech industrial complex. He talked about misinformation, media accountability, which is an absolute laugh. He talked about artificial intelligence and discussed that as well. He referenced the passage of gun safety legislation and so on, bipartisanship. Really? Are we seeing the bipartisanship in the Senate confirmation hearings right now? Is that what we're witnessing? Really, that's some incredible bipartisanship that we're watching. So he said he wanted to warn the country of some of the things that give me great concern, the president said. So we'll talk about that in more detail coming up this morning. His farewell address to the nation. He has also written a farewell letter addressed to the American people. And, highlighting some of these things, gun safety legislation, climate change efforts, talking about the economic struggles. He encouraged citizens to remain hopeful and engaged in the democratic process. So that's a big story this morning. I asked the question on Facebook, and I welcome your thoughts there. Do you think the rise of big tech is a threat to democracy, as President Biden warned in the farewell speech yesterday? So I welcome your comments on my Facebook page. Also, we've got some Senate confirmation hearings, or I should say, it was Pam Bondi who told the Senate Judiciary Committee during her first day of confirmation hearings yesterday. She said America must have one tier of justice for all. She said that includes getting back to basics: gangs, drugs, terrorists, cartels, our border, and our foreign adversaries. Lastly, and most importantly, if confirmed, I will fight every day to restore confidence and integrity to the Department of Justice in each of its components. The partisanship, the weaponization will be gone. America will have one tier of justice for all. So during her confirmation hearing yesterday, which will continue today, it's not done yet. She had an exchange with Senator Adam Schiff about Donald Trump issuing blanket pardons. And Bondi at one point said, "You were censured by Congress, Senator, for comments just like that are so reckless," she said. Oh, wow. So she pops him. And Schiff had asked, it will also be important that you give good advice to the president. Are you prepared to advise the president not to pardon people who beat police officers? Senator, as I said, the pardons are at the discretion of the president. We will look and we will advise. I will look at every case. And then he was beginning to interrupt her, and she said, "Let me finish. I will look at every case on a case-by-case basis, and I abhor violence to police officers." And Chip had cut in with the, well, good luck with that. So it will be your advice to the president. Mr. President, I know you said you want to issue hundreds of pardons on day one. It will be your advice to the president. No, Mr. President, I need to go over them on a case-by-case basis. Do not issue blanket pardons. Will that be your advice to the president? The Bondi said she would look at the files for the pardons. And Schiff was just cutting her off repeatedly. And so Bondi said, "I'm not going to mislead this body, nor you. You were censured by Congress, Senator, for comments just like this that are so reckless," she said. Wow. Oh, so she threw the Twister punch at Adam Schiff. Meanwhile, there was an exchange between her and Senator Richard Blumenthal. They were getting into questions about Kash Patel. There were all kinds of questions about Kash Patel. And in fact, that had brought some, here it is. Senator Tom Tillis of South Carolina at one point said, "You should be happy that so many comments have been directed toward Kash Patel, whose confirmation I'm supporting. So if it comes up again, you will once again know that you've got a great reputation and a great resume, and they're just trying to they're just trying to find things to put your integrity into question," said Senator Tillis. So all of these questions regarding Kash Patel, it's just as crazy as you watch that. Also, we had Florida Senator Marco Rubio beginning his confirmation hearings yesterday. Rubio is Donald Trump's choice for Secretary of State. And Rubio said, under President Trump, the top priority of the United States Department of State will be the United States. Every dollar we spend, every program we fund, every policy we pursue must be justified by the answer to one of three questions. Does it make America safer? Does it make America stronger? Does it make America more prosperous? Rubio said. And then he was talking about affairs in the Middle East. He said the deaths of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, one of the terrible things about war. He attributed, however, much of the blame to Hamas using civilians as human shields. He talked about Iran. He said what cannot be allowed under any circumstances is a nuclear-armed Iran. What cannot be allowed under any circumstances is an Iran and an Iranian regime that has the resources and capability to restart and continue their sponsorship of terrorism. He said, placing our core national interests above all else is not isolationism. It is the common sense realization that a foreign policy centered in our national interest is not some outdated relic, he said. Other stories, Minnesota. And who's controlling the Minnesota State House? After an election day where Democrats and Republicans tied with 67 seats apiece in Minnesota, subsequent vacancy put Republicans ahead by 1 seat when the legislature started recently, and the Democrats left the Capitol hoping to force Republicans to abide by a power sharing agreement that the two sides had agreed upon till a special election in 2 weeks will likely restore the tie. So Minnesota is in the midst of there are a lot of problems in Minnesota. Also, one of the other stories I think will interest some of you, especially in Iowa. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds announced a state Department of Government Efficiency focused on reducing wasteful spending. And this will be very much in line then with what the federal government will be doing. So Kim Reynolds announcing a state Department of Government Efficiency in the state of Iowa this week. And that's a look at some of the big stories this morning. Thanks for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. 627, clear skies, 27. Joe Bowman is in the Kello.com News Center. I'll run down brief headlines for you here in just a few moments.
Weeknights 5 to 8. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires. The Gift You More Tire and Automotive Store.
Get ready for the 72nd annual Sioux Empire Livestock Show. Nearly 1,000.
Good morning.
And their handlers competing in a variety of classes, vying for the prestige.
Okay, I got a moment to catch my breath here.
January 21st through the 26th at the W.H. Lyon Fairgrounds.
Bring charm from the outdoors into your home.
Yeah, I want to talk about the president's address in more detail coming up this morning after 7. Senator Mike Rounds will be on the program coming up this morning just after 8. Got a number of questions. He is he was there in the Pete Hegseth confirmation hearing earlier this week, so it'll be interesting to get Senator Rounds' thoughts on that. So we'll visit with him coming up this morning just after 8.
Be seen immediately inside the Avera Specialty Hospital at 69th and Louise. No appointment necessary.
I really did
Learn more about Avera's orthopedic urgent care at avera.org/orthopedic urgent care.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular.
Here's the thing is, I'm watching the clock. You see me looking right here a lot. I'm looking at the time. And I begin the show, and it's like the clock is just moving slowly. And then suddenly, when I start getting maybe 5 minutes away from when I know I have to break, man, the time rushes. It's like, oh, what happened to all of that time that I had? There it goes. All right, let's see what Joe Bowman's working on.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed. Join over 500,000 happy customers
By going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
6:30, clear and 27 currently at Kello. Joe Bowman is in the Kello.com News Center. Coming up, one person has been arrested following a shooting in a nursing home in Millbank. Also, South Dakota among the few states in the nation with the lowest number of influenza cases, according to the CDC. Joe will have details coming up. Then Then I'll run down stories that are trending in Belf's News Gallery.
Chris Foster. A ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas is in limbo. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his cabinet will not vote on it today.
He's accusing Hamas of reneging on parts of the agreement, and he won't convene the cabinet until Hamas backs down. A senior Hamas official insists the group is committed to the agreement announced yesterday. The first phase would see an initial 6-week halt to the fighting and 33 hostages granted their freedom. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
There's an Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief farewell ceremony for President Biden today. He addressed the nation from the White House, maybe for the last time, last night.
I'm so proud of how much we've accomplished together for the American people. And I wish the incoming administration success, because I want America to succeed.
He addresses the U.S. Conference of Mayors tomorrow. America's listening to Fox News.
Kello News Time, 6:31. Wow. Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. One person has been arrested following a shooting at a nursing home in Millbank yesterday. Authorities say an employee dispute led to the shooting at Avantera Millbank, where a supervisor was shot in the nose area, but luckily only received minor injuries. Police apprehended the female suspect as she was trying to flee the scene. The Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe has lifted its banishment of Governor Nome. In a letter to the governor, tribal president Anthony Ryder thanked Nome for apologizing about comments she made about tribal members and the education of tribal children. Ryder went on to commend Nome on her nomination to be Secretary of Homeland Security. Sioux Falls residents are loving the new indoor recreation space. Mayor Paulton Haken says the newly acquired Westside Recreation Center is exceeding all expectations just days after opening its doors as a city facility.
We've already sold more passes than we planned to sell for the entire year in the first 2 weeks of being open. And so it's been a home run. The demand is certainly there for more indoor rec in the city of Sioux Falls.
Indoor recreation is at the heart of another major proposed city development, the Riverline District. The city is about to close on purchasing the Riverline land and will go to work soon on considering options for its use. A portion of Sioux Falls' snow removal budget will go back into the city's general fund. Sioux Falls has only seen 5.3 inches of snow so far this winter, much less than previous years. Officials are still deciding on how much money to put back into the fund since winter is still going on. South Dakota is among the few states in the nation with the lowest numbers of influenza cases. According to the CDC, most of the U.S. is experiencing elevated levels of respiratory illness, but South Dakota is still in the low category. The CDC says cases are up nationwide because people aren't updating their vaccinations. And in sports, South Dakota State hosts North Dakota, and South Dakota is also home playing against Oral Roberts. Both games tip off tonight at 7. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Mostly sunny skies today and a mild afternoon. Our high temperature close to 40 with a northwest wind 5 to 15. For tonight, back down in the mid-20s for a low, and tomorrow upper 30s, but the catch will be the wind increasing in the afternoon, 20 to 35 with some higher gusts, and falling temperatures in the mid-teens on Saturday. From the Storm Center at Kibbleband TV, I'm Brian Karstens.
Having trouble receiving Kello at 107.9? If you're in the Sioux Falls Metro, try us at FM 105.1. Kello News Talk 1320 and now at 105.1.
There's been a quiet revolution with laptops, a major advance that received very little fanfare. And if you haven't upgraded your laptop in the last 4 to 5 years, here's the big reason why you should. I'm Kim Commando for NetSuite. Download the CFO's Guide to Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning for free at netsuite.com/Kim. The big advance in laptops is what I call the all-day computer. The chronic weakness of laptops since their introduction 45 years ago has been power. You never know when they're going to run out. Not carrying the charger was tempting fate, and even when you had the charger, you needed a place to plug it in. The breakthrough wasn't the batteries. Yeah, they have gotten better, but there's a new generation of powerful processors built into the laptop. Apple's M series, and for Windows, Qualcomm's Snapdragon X series or Intel's Core Ultra 7 processors all now make it possible to run your laptop all day. Yeah, it's time to upgrade. You'll never be tech behind if you get my newsletter.
What am I laughing at? I'll tell you in a minute.
What does the future hold for business? Ask 9 experts and you'll get 10 answers. Rates rising or falling, inflation being up or down. Can someone please invent a crystal ball? Until then, over 41,000 businesses have future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backward and more time on what's next. And speaking of opportunity, you can now download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Kim. The guide is free for you at netsuite.com/Kim. That's netsuite.com/Kim. netsuite.com/Kim.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
In the heart of our community, where dreams rise from blueprints, there's a name you trust. G.A. Johnson Construction, where craftsmanship meets commitment and every project is a promise kept. G.A. Johnson Construction, where excellence is the blueprint.
At the Diamond Room by Spectre, you'll find the largest selection of loose diamonds in the Sioux Empire. Whether you're looking for an engagement ring, anniversary gift, or special birthday gift. Locally owned and operated since 1996. The Diamond Room. There is no comparison.
Connect directly, bid confidently. At Purple Wave Auction, transparency is key. With no reserves and no hidden surprises, you're connected directly to sellers so you can inspect and bid on quality equipment with confidence. Whether you're looking for ag, construction, or fleet equipment, we're here to ensure a clear, hassle-free experience. Register today at purplewave.com and start bidding with peace of mind. Purple Wave Auction, the easiest and most straightforward way to buy and sell equipment.
All right, you said bye-bye to big government, and you want limited government. You voted for that. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you are still using the big carriers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, I ask, why are you doing that? Because my cell phone company, Pure Talk, a veteran-owned company, gives you the exact same service. They use the same cell towers. You get the same 5G network. You get better customer service, and they're based here in the U.S., and you pay half the price for the exact same thing. And that's right. There's simply no need to spend $85, $100 a month per person on your wireless bill. Not when you can get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, one mobile hotspot.
I'm burning through the coffee this morning.
And by the way, the average family of 4 saves about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk. Make the switch. You simply dial pound 250. You say the keyword save now. Do it now. You save an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250 keyword save now from our friends at Pure Talk.
It's tax time, and if you need help, call Nest Tax and Bookkeeping Service. Voted your local best for 19 years in a row. Nest Tax is locally owned and professionally staffed with enrolled agents and CPAs who are ready to put their knowledge to work for you. Nest Tax is open extended hours and weekends at 2 convenient Sioux Falls locations to serve you. Think you might owe? Find out how much. You can still file now, pay the IRS by April 15th. Nest Tax could find a way for you to owe less, or maybe not even have to pay Uncle Sam at all. The IRS says, don't paper file or send in checks. Go to Nest Tax to e-file your return and use direct deposit or direct debit. Call Nest Tax today or schedule with them online at nesttax.com. That's nesttax.com. You're more than just a number at Nest. Locally owned, locally known, locally the best.
Brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Winter in South Dakota is one big question mark.
What's it gonna be like today?
How bad are the roads?
Will I be able to wrestle my kid into those snow pants?
Get most of the answers you want with up-to-the-minute forecast of the latest road conditions on Kello News Talk 1320.
20 minutes before 7, clear skies and 27. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Hey, we're asking you, I'm asking you on my Facebook page this morning, do you think the rise of big tech is a threat to democracy, as President Biden warned yesterday in his farewell speech? I would appreciate your answers on Facebook. You can join the conversation there. Appreciate all of you who do so. Also, my thanks to Mrs. Belfrage. Sent me a story this morning about, and this is a story from Dakota News Now. An Iowa state senator said earlier this week that he intends to propose legislation to purchase parts of southern Minnesota. And he's looking at 9 of Minnesota's southernmost counties: Rock, Mower, Fillmore, Houston, Nobles, Jackson, Martin, Freeborn, and Faribault counties. And he says Iowa taxpayers would get a return on investment because there would be immediate investment in every one of these counties in terms of agriculture and renewable energy and manufacturing. He said, we have a lower tax, less regulation, and business-friendly environment, and that would really take off in those 9 counties. I think some South Dakota lawmakers should get on this stick here and make some similar proposals regarding some of those counties that are neighboring South Dakota as well. But I found that story to be kind of interesting. It'll be fascinating to see what happens with that in Iowa.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belf's News.
All right, these are the stories that are trending this morning. Israel and Hamas have reached a ceasefire and hostage release agreement that will bring they've been fighting for over a year in the Gaza Strip, and so it would bring that to an end. The president, in a written statement, said today, after many months of intensive diplomacy by the U.S., along with Egypt and Qatar, Israel and Hamas have reached a ceasefire and hostage deal, he said. And then he spoke from the White House yesterday afternoon, and he said there was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come for the sake of the people of Israel and for the families waiting in agony and for the sake of the innocent people in Gaza who suffered unimaginable devastation because of the war. So he took the president taking credit for the ceasefire deal, but he was asked during the news conference yesterday. He was, praising national security officials then who have been working on this, and he was asked whether Donald Trump deserved any credit for reaching that agreement, and the president said, "Is that a joke?" And he continued then walking away from reporters as he responded to it. And we'll get into that in more detail coming up next hour. Also, the president has also released a farewell letter. And his term in the White House then expires on Monday. And so he, in this farewell letter, claiming January 6th was the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And it's really, that's still where you're going, huh? That's still where he's at. He, among other things. Now, I'll break that letter down for you as we talk next hour. And I'm really curious to get your thoughts on the president's speech. He said, "I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, and I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people." He said, "Wages are up, inflation continues to come down, the racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We're rebuilding our entire nation. Manufacturing is coming back to America." Is that are those the efforts of the president, or are those, our manufacturer is anticipating Donald Trump coming back as president again. Also, still trending this morning, the Biden administration's Food and Drug Administration took a new step then yesterday that would effectively ban cigarettes that are currently on the market in favor of those with lower levels of nicotine. So the FDA issued a proposed rule that would make cigarettes, certain other tobacco products, they would have to limit the level of nicotine in those products. Also, First Lady Jill Biden yesterday reflected on her relationship with Representative Nancy Pelosi. This is in an interview that Jill Biden did with the White House. And the First Lady said that she has known Nancy Pelosi nearly as long as she's known the president. And that relationship between, certainly, she said, she'd been disappointed with Representative Pelosi, who would not openly support President Biden's reelection bid. Representative Pelosi just said it's up to the president to decide if he's going to run. So then Jill revisited all of that and told the Washington Post, she said, I've been thinking a lot about relationships, the First Lady said. It's been on my mind a lot lately. And she said of Nancy Pelosi, we were friends for 50 years. It was disappointing, she said. Also, the president calling for a constitutional amendment to ban presidential immunity for acts in office. Get a parting shot at Donald Trump. This guy can't help himself. Also trending this morning, Donald Trump is urging Vivek Ramaswamy to take the Senate seat of J.D. Vance. So Governor Mike DeWine must then pick someone to replace Vance. And so apparently Donald Trump is urging Vivek Ramaswamy to run for that position. Also, I found this just, it made me laugh yesterday, and I shared this news on the fourth hour yesterday. Donald Trump has received a gift from the CEO of Coca-Cola, who, as you know, Donald Trump has a love, especially of Diet Coke. And so they presented Donald Trump with a special edition of a Diet Coke bottle. And there are photos of this. So the special Diet Coke bottle has Washington, D.C.'s White House as its main theme and follows gray wrapping with blue and red. So red, white, and blue. And it includes inauguration of President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, is written on it, congratulating Trump for his election victory. This special Diet Coke bottle came in a red box with a letter showcasing Coca-Cola's economic significance to the U.S. And so there were photos of Trump and the CEO of Coca-Cola. You may have seen those yesterday. That story is trending today. Also, the Prime Minister of Denmark has told Donald Trump that it will be up to the residents of Greenland to decide on any independence. Trump has said that control of Greenland was an absolute necessity, and we've talked about that story. He wouldn't rule out military or economic action such as tariffs against Denmark, and so on. So the Prime Minister of Denmark saying that territory not for sale, but then said it's up to Greenland to decide its future. Also, Donald Trump may issue an executive order that would suspend the TikTok ban. That, is scheduled to go into effect on Sunday. The TikTok ban would go into effect on Sunday. And the move would prevent U.S. officials from enforcing the law for 60 to 90 days. This is based on a story from the Washington Post. So Trump's inauguration is coming up on Monday, one day after the nationwide ban becomes official. So a last-minute plan to save TikTok would be an executive order suspending the ban for a short period of time. Also, Pam Bondi giving her opening statement before Congress. She told the Senate Judiciary Committee during her first day of confirmation hearings, America must have one tier of justice for all, she said. That includes getting back to basics. Gangs, drugs, terrorists, cartels, our border, and our foreign adversaries. Lastly, and most importantly, if confirmed, I will fight every day to restore confidence and integrity to the Department of Justice and each of its components. The partisanship, the weaponization will be gone. America will have one tier of justice for all. Also, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst has been trending because she has announced that she will be supporting Pete Hegseth as Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. So Ernst was, this is a video that was posted to X. Ernst was heard talking about how she would be supporting Hegseth to be confirmed. She has met with Hegseth several times, and Ernst said he was adequately able to answer all of my questions. He pointed out all of the woke issues at the Pentagon. And I think we're at a point where now we can start moving forward. And Ernst said, yes, I will be supporting President Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth, said Senator Ernst. Oh, and I should have, forgive me, I should have shared this story earlier as we were talking about TikTok. TikTok is preparing to shut down their app in the U.S. on Sunday, according to sources. So they will shut down U.S. operations of TikTok on Sunday. And again, Washington Post saying that he's considering an executive order that would give TikTok users then a 60 to 90 day, refrain while they move forward. Also, there's a lot of chaos over in the Minnesota House on the first day of the Minnesota legislative session. Democrats didn't show up. They were trying to prevent a quorum. And Democrats were not too happy based on what I had seen over this. So the war over the control of the House continues in Minnesota. After a roll call, there just weren't enough members to do any business. Also, the U.S. Supreme Court appeared open yesterday to upholding a Texas law requiring pornography websites to verify the age of their users. This has been a free speech issue. A group of challengers representing free speech advocates, as well as major porn websites, had asked the justices to overturn a state law that requires visitors to provide documentation to verify their age. So you've got to have some kind of government issued ID, driver's license or otherwise, to be able to verify your age. And the Supreme Court appeared open to upholding the law. Also, 2 private missions heading for the moon have blasted off on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. The lunar landers were launched in the middle of the night from Kennedy Space Center. These are the latest then to try to land on the moon. America's Firefly Aerospace and Japan's iSpace shared the ride in order to save money. But parted company an hour later. They'll take different routes to the moon, but they were both launched on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. Also, the Food and Drug Administration said yesterday that it's banning of red dye number 3, red number 3. It's a synthetic dye that gives food and drinks that bright red cherry kind of color. They say red number 3 has been linked to cancer in animals. So that is used in thousands of foods, candy, cereals, a number of things. So the FDA has banned it. Also, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is suing Capital One. They're alleging that Capital One misled customers about their high interest savings accounts. And in doing so, they allegedly cheated customers out of more than $2 billion in interest payments. Also, Meta announced earlier this week, they notified employees that they intend to lay off about 5% of their workforce. So Mark Zuckerberg is trying to raise the company's performance standards. So they are eliminating about 3,000 employees. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. 6:57, clear and 27. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
Talk and news when it happens. Kello News Talk.
Thank you, my friend, for being here. Hope to see you again at 9:30 for the 4th hour. I'll see you then. So you take care. Have a great day.